Welcome to the Creative Freedom Plan, a podcast and membership hosted by yours truly, Michal Emily Schuster. I'm here to empower creatives like you with the training you need to become full-time, financially free online entrepreneurs. On this podcast, I'm sharing all of my best strategies, wisdom, and mindset shifts that will allow you to self-actualize as a creative, build the business of your dreams, and become truly free. Hello and welcome back to the Creative Freedom Plan podcast, or welcome if you're new here and you're just joining for the first time. We have an incredible episode for you today, a special guest interview with Allison. She also goes by Alli, or Authentically Al on Instagram. Allison and I have known each other for a while. We actually met in school and lived in the same small town for a while before her family moved away. We are those quintessential farm kids, grew up doing 4-H and FFA and raising animals together. We both share that background, and she's still in the ranching world and lifestyle. Alli, if you would, introduce yourself and share with the audience who you are and what you're up to in the world, what this chapter, this season of your life is looking like.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Allison, but call me Alli. Allison seems way too formal for me. It's not my thing. I am currently in Wyoming living on a ranch with my husband. We raise cattle and put up hay for ourselves and others. I am a mom of a 1-year-old. Let me tell you, the toddler phase is not for the weak. That's for sure. I feel like on his birthday, I put him to bed as a baby, and then he woke up a totally different little being. But I love it. I love his personality. Motherhood is a big part of who I am. When I'm not being a mom, you can find me in the kitchen baking something up or cooking. I love to be outdoors, whether that be walking or working with the animals. I convinced my husband to let me get goats, so that's kind of my new thing right now. Yeah, I don't know how long it'll last, but I thought maybe if I start with those, then we can go to a milk cow or something. We'll see. That's kind of where I'm at in life right now.
I love that. Yeah. And one of the trademarks of your brand and your storytelling is cooking cattle in chaos. I just love that you're so open to sharing the chaotic aspects of life along with the cooking that you love and the cattle, and your storytelling, your authentic presence, I just think is so captivating. When you moved away from the small town that we met in and spent quite a bit of time around each other in, well, I sort of kept up with you on Facebook.
Yeah.
You would share things from time to time. And then you circled back into communication with me through messages on Facebook. And then through some of those conversations, you actually were one of the first students to go through my creative business accelerator program. So we got to work together in that capacity, which was incredible to just be in that container and have that relationship again. And for me to, see the person that you had become from when we knew each other as kids and growing up and seeing you now as a mom. But I wonder if you could touch on that from your perspective, making that choice to invest in yourself, saying yes to those dreams. What was that like for you in that moment?
So I've always had this desire to share my story in some sort of way. I wasn't really sure how that was going to be. I thought maybe a book, honestly. It's always been something on my heart, and I would eventually like to do that. But as time went on, you just kind of push yourself on the back burner and you are like, let's take care of everybody else, because as long as everybody else is happy, then I'll be happy, or at least that's my downfall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I had my son, and it really opened my eyes to who I want him to remember me as. I wanted him to see that, yes, my life was crazy and chaotic, but I took the time to invest in myself for a better future for myself, which would ultimately lead to a better future for him. So that's why I said yes, because I want him to know that your dreams, no matter how big or small, are worth chasing, even if they don't feel like the right time, because there is no right time.
It's so powerful because you hear it all the time. Kids don't really listen to what you say as much as they watch what you do. And that's what kind of lessons they take to heart. You could have had those conversations day in and day out with your son where it's like, you can do it, you can go for it, live
Right.
your big dreams. But if he wasn't seeing you walking the talk and doing the same sort of thing, it probably just wouldn't have had the same kind of impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the small things too. Like, it's so interesting to me. So, my husband and I read to our son every night, at least two books. He has books all around the house, and I see him constantly. He'll just go pick up books and he'll flip through them. Like, it's just crazy to me how the small steps are already playing into action with him. And so, like you said, like if he sees me walking the walk and talking the talk, then he'll be more inclined to do the same thing.
Tell me more about your journey with that, like your experience of downplaying your own dreams and desires. How did that play out for you as a young woman coming of age? What did that part of your story look like?
So I've always been a planner since a young age. Most little girls are like, "Oh, I want to be a ballerina," or "I want to be a princess." Not me. I was like, "I want to be a veterinarian," and I was sold on that. I told everybody that from a young age, and then my freshman year of high school, I was like, "You know what? Maybe that's not what I want to do." I had gotten really into photography at that point in my life, so I thought maybe I will still stick with animals, but also add photography into the mix. What better job than working for National Geographic? If you're gonna dream, dream big, right? So
Totally.
that was my dream. And I went to college at Auburn down in Alabama, which was 36 hours away from my family. And that part honestly wasn't hard. But what was hard is I had this plan, I had this goal in mind, everything mapped out. There was no room for error. And I got hit with some really unexpected news my first week of my freshman year. Everything I went to that school for wasn't actually going to be able to work out. And so I was like, now what?
What
Here I
happened
am.
in that
Um,
first week?
yeah, so I had plans of majoring in zoology and then minoring in photography. I went to change some classes because it wasn't working in my schedule, and they were like, "We don't have a photography minor." I don't know why anybody ever told you that. There was one other thing, I can't remember exactly, but I was like, "Well, that really changes things."
Oh my gosh.
But I am not one to throw in the towel right away, so I was like, "You know what? I'm here. Spent the money. Lord knows I spent a lot of money, so I'll finish out my first semester here and then I will make a game plan from there." And that's what I did.
Where did you go from there? Were you still looking for a photography program?
So I transferred back home to Montana State University in Bozeman, and I went with an animal science degree. That was the plan, at least. I was like, it's still with animals, still in the realm. And then I finished my freshman year and I was like, what am I doing with my life? This is not what I want to be doing. I don't feel fulfilled at all. I feel very confused, and I could be confused at home for a lot cheaper than at college. So after I finished my freshman year, I took a semester off and I did a lot of soul searching, honestly. A lot of crying, a lot of
Mm.
a lot of frustration, a bunch of different things. And I had some people in my life that were like, "Oh, she dropped out. She's never going to go back. Like, this is it, the typical thing." I am a person that is fueled by proving others wrong that say I can't do something. I knew that I was going to go back to college. I just didn't want to waste a bunch of money. So once I figured out what I wanted to do. I transferred to North Dakota State in Fargo, North Dakota, to pursue a veterinary technology degree. That is what I ended up graduating college with. That is not what I do with my life currently, though.
Take me through that process of going from totally lost, no idea what direction to go in, to finding direction for yourself. How did that work for you?
Yeah, so what worked for me, I got outside. Like you, or at least myself, I noticed that when I was inside thinking about X, Y, and Z, I would just spiral. And I was like, well, I guess like I'm stuck here. I just have to do what I have to do to survive and then we'll call it good. But I knew that's not what I wanted for myself. I spent a lot of time reflecting on what I wanted my future to look like. I still to this day, I do not love the question of where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years because I feel like that boxes somebody in so much, right? And I was like, well, where do I see myself in 5 years? Because I don't even know where I see myself in a year. Once I started answering those questions and diving into that, then I was able to make a plan for myself.
I totally resonate with that experience of like, at least for me going into college, I was motivated by what I was hearing around me as far as what's a good path to follow, what's a good degree to get, what's a good job
Right.
to have, what's going to set you up to check all the boxes and to have this perfect
Mm-hmm.
just cut and paste life.
Yes.
and and that's where I got lost, was not really checking in with myself along the way to think, does this actually feel good? Am I actually on the right path for myself? Going through the motions, 4 years
Mm-hmm.
getting the degree that I didn't actually want to have anything to do with. I didn't want to
Right.
spend my life locked away in a cubicle crunching numbers on a spreadsheet. And when I
Mm-hmm.
realized, I kind of woke up one day and was like, oh my God, this is the direction that I'm putting myself in, and I
Yep.
don't want to go here. And then I got to do that soul searching for myself. And it wasn't like I came up with a destination, like here's where I want to be in 5 years. This is what I want my life to look like. It sounds really similar to what you kind of figured out as well. It was like, well, what would a good day look like? I like spending
Mm-hmm.
time outside, writing, journaling, moving my body in some capacity, feeling the sun on my face.
Yeah.
Just kind of these simple things that started me on the path, which I just love the parallels in our own story because it sounds like really similar to what got you on the path that was right for you as well. Okay, so take me to North Dakota and tell me about vet tech school in Fargo.
Yeah. So college itself was fantastic. I met people there that will be friends for life. I actually officiated one of my roommates' weddings. Like that's where that took me. It
Love that.
was great. And by nature, I am such an introverted person. But going there actually helped me get out of my shell a little bit, try new things. I told myself going into it, this is your third school, right? That was a big joke in my family, like, oh, hope the third time is a charm. I was like, well, I'm paying for it. So I guess I can do what I want to do. And it really was, though. Third time was the charm for me. I met my people. I joined clubs that were interesting to me. I traveled a lot, which helped me figure out where I wanted to go. I did that before I went to North Dakota State, but I did that while I was there. And I cannot promote traveling by yourself enough. Or, I mean, with friends is fun too, but there is something so special about traveling by yourself, especially if you're like, well, this is not how I thought this would go. And then you have to figure out how to get yourself out of that situation or that scenario. And so that is that's what I did, and that really is kind of what helped light my soul on fire. But like you, there was one day I woke up, I think it was March, and I was supposed to graduate in May. I woke up and I was like, I don't want to do this. I was so close to finishing. in getting my degree. I got it, obviously, but I knew before I even started that it was over for me in that career field.
You just couldn't see yourself walking down that path, like, just couldn't picture it at all.
I was burned out before I even started. In the program, we worked with small animals a lot. We did large animal, and that was always my goal, to go to a large animal clinic. We're just constantly told that you're going to work long hours, you're going to be underpaid. Some of the people that you work with are they're not really going to want to teach you. They're just going to be grouchy that you're taking their position even though they're on their way out the door.
As you're approaching the end of your degree, was like, I mean, it sounds kind of like an existential crisis where, I mean, how did you figure out where you were going to go from there?
So I walked in May, but I technically wasn't done with my schooling until August because I had to do an externship. I went to a horse clinic in Kentucky. Everything they said it was going to be was the exact opposite of what it was. I was there for 2 weeks and I was like, I have to do 8 weeks of this. This is going to be a long journey. They said they were going to provide a place for me to stay, and there would be a lot of one-on-one time with the vets and the techs, because for the externship you have a checklist of skills that you have to show them. And so I was like, perfect, that's what I need. I went there and there were 6 other people. The real kicker though was the room they provided was for all of us. So I was sleeping on an air mattress. And one of the other people was this guy. I was so uncomfortable with the whole thing. And these
How is that
girls,
even okay? How do they get away with
right?
doing that?
Yeah, that I don't know. And there was this girl there that was her way or the highway, and she was a student too, learning. And I was like, sis, you need to calm down. Okay, we're all
Mhm.
here to learn. Let's support each other. Let's not tear each other down.
Yeah.
So I reached out to one of my classmates who was in Indiana at another horse clinic. And I was like, hey, how's it going there? Because I knew she was about done. And she was like, oh, it's great. Like, I have my own room and it's right at the clinic. Like, it's perfect. And I'm like, do you think they would want somebody else? And so thankfully, the clinic said, yes, we'll take you. And so I packed up my stuff one weekend and I went to Indiana. That's where I finished my externship at, which was great because some of my family's in Illinois. So they really weren't that far away. I could go see them on the weekends.
So that all ended up working out, but holy cow. Okay, so what happened from there? That was wrapping up your degree, but then did you
Mhm.
continue in terms of looking for work? How did that look?
I did what I said I was never going to do, and I moved back home because I didn't have a plan, and my parents were gracious enough to accept me. However, if you've ever moved back in with your parents after not living with them, it's rough.
Hard.
Yeah, love my family to death, but I was like, wow, I have my own life now and we do things very differently.
Yeah.
So I moved in and then I was like, I can't just be a bump on a log. Like, I have to do something. So I went and got a job at a local school. I started in a few of the different rooms, like with little kids. And then eventually I started teaching preschool, which I absolutely love. That was one of my favorite jobs that I've ever
Mhm.
had. In the back of my mind, though, I knew I didn't want to live with my parents forever. I lived in the basement, so I was that stereotype. I knew that was not for me. Ever since I was in high school, I wanted to move to either Tennessee or Wyoming. And so I decided, I literally one day was just like, I'm going to move and I'm going to move this fall. I had nothing in order. Like, I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have a job down there. I just knew some people in the area cuz first thing that I did when I graduated college, I went and did an internship on a lambing operation. I absolutely loved it. So when I decided to move to Wyoming, I was like, I will move to a town close to those people because at least I'll have somebody that I know. And that's, yeah, that's what I did. I eventually found a place to live. I had a family friend offer me a job working remotely. And so everything kind of just started falling into place after that decision.
I love that so much because I've seen that in my own life too, where like maybe you come to a breaking point, maybe you get the courage to go out on a limb, but you know that there's something that you need to do. You know, you need to move on. You know, you need to step out of your comfort zone and be brave and just like get going. And then it's like, God, the universe, like just kind of catches you and starts
Yep.
opening doors, and it's like you're being cheered on along the way
Yes.
and rewarded for your bravery. It's such a beautiful experience, especially in contrast with the experience of walking down a path that you pretty much know is not the path and getting met
Mhm.
with roadblock after roadblock along the way, especially like
Yes.
what you were experiencing. And so to have that experience where doors just open up, that's such a magical thing. And it was there that you met your husband?
Yeah, I had actually met my husband my second year when I went and did the lambing internship. It was the worst year of lambing they had had in 20 plus years. It rained pretty much every day. It
Oh,
was muddy, it was cold, all the things, right? And I loved it. I was like, this is a great time. I am outside working with animals, learning so much. And so I asked the following year if I could come back.
they
They
were like,
told
"Who
me,
is this girl?"
they literally said, if you're stupid enough to come back, we'll take you. It was that year that I met my husband. Actually, I was not interested in the guy at all. I just
Way.
thought he had a cute dog and I wanted to pet his dog. And that was about it. That's what my husband tells our son now. He's like, when you're older, buddy, all you need is a good dog.
Yeah.
I met him then, and then I moved to the area in September of that same year. And everyone was, oh, you're moving here for your boyfriend. Like, that's so sweet. And that irked me so much because I'm such an independent person and I'm not moving here for him. I had this plan long before this guy was even in the picture. Excuse me, no, I am doing this for myself. And a lot of people were like, oh, okay, she's not messing around.
Strong, independent woman.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're skipping over some important details because how did you go from "Guy's got a cute dog, but I am not interested at all" to now you're dating?
Yeah. So cute dog. I pet said dog. And that was kind of it. And then we went on, in true Western fashion, we went on a coyote chase together. He just happened to be there. The guy he was with was the brother of the guy that I worked for during lambing.
Okay.
And they're like, there's a coyote out in the sheep. We got to go get it. I can't get the sheep. And I'm like, absolutely, let's go. Travis, that's the guy I work for. He looked at me before we started and said, we may die. Are you ready? said, I said, let me go pee first. Then we went on this crazy coyote chase. It was so much fun. When we got done, we all got out of our vehicles, and I was like, oh, there's that guy with the dog again. I didn't even know his name. So then he was like, oh, hi, I'm Jake. I'm like, hi, I'm Alli. And that was it. Then I happened to see him one more time during lambing. His old roommate roped with Travis. Like there were all these other people that played into our story. I tried to talk to him. Normally I'm okay with silence, but I was like, this is just too awkward. I tried to talk to him. It lasted for like 5 seconds. We talked about sleep. That was it.
Get a good 8 hours last night? How about you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was like, my dad likes to say, pulled an all dayer today. It was pretty rough. And I'm like, yeah. So then lambing was over and I got home and I was trying to tell my family about this cute dog. And I was like, shoot, I cannot remember the dog's name. And so then I had this internal debate with myself. I was like, do I friend Jake on Facebook and then message him, or do I just message him and hope that he sees it? I sent him a message and I was like, hey, this is really random. I was just trying to tell my parents about your dog, but I can't remember his name. To my surprise, he messaged back, told me his dog's name, and then he just kept talking to me. At one point, I told my brother, I don't know why this guy keeps talking to me. I just wanted to know his dog's name. That was it. So we just kept talking. And the more we talked, I was like, okay, not a bad guy. If I actually look at him and not the dog cute, he'll be a really good friend. Because I really was looking for a good guy friend at that point in my life because my brother is my best guy friend. He needs to have other people besides me just trying to tag along all the time. So I thought, yeah, you know what? Jake's a good guy. He'll be a great friend. And then, classic story, the more it went on, I was like, I think I kind of like him.
Catching feelings.
Yes.
That's so sweet. Yeah, it's like you kind of built that trust. And I've definitely heard other people talk about that too, where the attraction comes after you get to know them. And it's more about who they are as a person than like surface level, kind of just like, oh, saw them out of the corner of my eye and, felt some chemical hormones go through my
Right.
body. It's deeper than that. And that's a really beautiful story.
And I was always told build a friendship first and a relationship will come later if you
Mhm.
want one. If I could go back in time and change our story, I wouldn't because I love how it unfolded. At the end of the day, he's my friend first.
Yeah,
And that's such an important relationship to have.
absolutely. You've got each other's backs,
Mm.
and the romance and the excitement is just kind of frosting on top of the cake. It's the
Yeah.
cherry on top. How did your relationship play out from there? And then tell me about where you are now and kind of vision for your life and your future. Ooh, and I got to hear about the book too.
After I had moved down there, our relationship just kept getting deeper and deeper. Eventually, I was like, you know what? I think this is the guy. Like, when he's ready, I'm ready type deal. And I had always told myself by year 3, if I'm dating someone and they don't propose, I'm done. Because if you've been together for that long, you should know, right?
You had that knowing
Yeah.
without having to go through the experience of being in a relationship past the 30-year mark. That was my experience. I was with a guy for 5 years. Only through seeing my sister have her baby did the clue start dropping in my brain. Oh, this isn't the man that I want to have babies with. And
Yeah.
now that I have this experience with my niece, I know for sure that I do want to have babies. The wheels started turning for me, but that's amazing that you already knew that without having to go through the experience. Cause yeah, on the other side,
Yeah.
now I'm like, kind of, it's even like a 1 year for me. I'm like, it's kind of like a 1 year minimum, 1 year maximum kind of thing. If I spend 1 year with someone, that's probably enough time to get to know them in all the different seasons and really get a feel for what they're like. And, if it's not clearly progressing after 1 year, then that's probably the clue.
Yeah. We had been dating for a little over a year when he proposed. It I was not expecting it. We went to Montana for Easter to see my family. We went to the bar with my family to play pool and go dancing. My dad got Jake pretty tuned up, and I was so frustrated. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why are you being this way around my family? Why did you choose this moment? Well, come to find out, he was like, "Oh, we're all relaxed. This is a great time." That night, he had asked my parents for permission to marry me. And so my dad was just feeding him celebratory shots. My dad is not to be trusted.
You had no idea. And they're like, we're family. This is happening.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I don't know if you've heard of 75 hard, but at the time I was doing 75 hard. So I was only drinking water. That just
Oh, no.
added to my frustration. I was like, oh my gosh. I'm going to have some words with him in the morning.
Oh, totally.
But then well, it was June actually, because I had finished lambing for another year and he was gone lambing for somebody else. When I finished up lambing, he was like, "Hey, do you want to come down, help us here for a little bit?" And I was like, "Sure," because I was curious to see how somebody else did it. We were docking sheep one day, and after we got done docking sheep, he was like, "Let's go get some ice cream," because it was so hot. And I was like, "Oh, that's perfect." So we went and got some ice cream. And then there's a natural bridge in this town. And we went there and we were just sitting on the riverbank and there was nobody else around. He is like kind of down on one knee, but I thought he was just like adjusting his sock because we were going to put our feet in the water. He looks at me and he's like, "Will you marry me?" And I thought he was totally joking. So, being my sarcastic self, I was like, "Oh, sure." Then I looked and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, he's serious." His face was so serious. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Yes, of course I'll marry you. And he he didn't even have a ring. He proposed with a blade of grass that he had just picked up and tied into a little ring. So that's what he slid on my finger. I actually laminated it because I was just like, that's such a him move to just
Mhm.
propose with blade of grass. And so then we got back to the town the next day and we were still in our sheep clothes. We did not smell good at all, I'm sure. And we had like blood all over our shirt, right? Because we were docking. And he was like, "Let's go pick out a ring." I'm like this? Should we should we really go into town like this? And sure enough, we did. So I picked out my own ring because he was like,
Mm.
"Well, I had this idea, but I didn't know." So blah, blah, blah. And like for months before that, he had been telling me, "Hey, please don't look on my phone. I have a surprise." And I was like, "I trust you. Like, I don't think you're hiding anything." Because before, like, we would get on each other's phones all the time. There was nothing to hide. So I was like, this
Yeah.
must be a true surprise. I won't look. Come to find out, he was looking at rings. That is what the surprise was. So, yeah, that is how that all unfolded. Like,
Sweetest story.
I don't want to wait a year to get married. Let's get married the same exact year. And I had always wanted a fall wedding. We were looking for venues and everything by then was booked up. There was one place, but it was just this industrial building with concrete floors. And I'm like, that does not feel like us at all. No matter how much decorating we do, it's just not going to be. And when Jake and I started dating, there was this joke at lambing camp that Jake and I were just going to get married in the barn that we lamb the sheep out of. And when we got engaged, I was like, why don't we get married in the barn? It has so much potential. So we went and we asked if we could get married in the barn, and the look on their face, like, "Oh my gosh, why would you want to get married in that barn? It's disgusting." But they said yes, thankfully. And I had a vision, and Jake made it come to life. And when Travis and Tracy walked into the barn, they're like, "Oh my gosh, we had a wedding venue on our hands this whole time and had no idea." um,
That's
so yeah,
amazing. Oh,
that was really special actually to get married there. And then once we got married, we did all the life events so quickly. We did not pause for anything because right after we got married, Jake got offered a job at a ranch where he had been lambing. And so we were like, you know what? We have nothing to lose. Like, we're newly married. We don't have any kids yet. Like, let's do this. And so we moved down there and then found out we were having a kid pretty shortly after that. And then we were there for about 6 months. And Jake and his dad have always wanted a place of their own. His parents have a place, but it's smaller. It's not as big as they would like for as many cattle as they would like to run. And so Jake was on Facebook one day just scrolling along and he sees this ranch for sale. And he was like, let's message these people and see. And he did. And it kind of all just like, it was one of those things. It was a very big dream that we were like, this is pretty unrealistic, but we're going to kick ourselves if we don't try.
Mm.
And sure enough, the owners were like, yes, we would love to sell it to you. Like, we have somebody else interested. They came and looked, but like, you're the people that we want it to go to. And so we're like, oh my gosh, now what? Kind of like the dog who caught the car. And so then we packed everything up again and we moved down to where we are now. And kind of just been in the growing process ever since. My husband, he comes from dry land and there is a lot of irrigation down here. So that's been a big learning curve for him. And
Mm.
just trying to grow our place while I was growing a little human being and then now chasing after a little human being. Like I said, we were like, you know what? We looked at each other last year on our anniversary and we said, how about we take a break now? No more big life events. Like, let's just chill where we are. And so that's kind of what we've been doing ever since is just, you know, focusing on what we have and also at the same time making plans for the future.
Mm. What are those plans for the future?
So for me personally, I have, as you know, I took your course, absolutely loved it, cannot recommend it enough. Anybody that's listening, like if they feel that desire for something more in their life, take Michael's class.
Mm.
You won't regret it. Money well spent. I was slow to get with the program. I took all the information in, loved it. I was like, cool. I'm just going to sit here with this information now. And then
And your baby. So,
yeah,
like, it's not like you were just sitting around. Yeah, when you were going through the program, I was just like, all right. Yeah, we just kept going over and over. Progress over perfection, small incremental steps. Don't bite off more than you can chew because I didn't have the experience of raising a kid, but I saw my sister raising her kid and then like trying to get back into farm work, ranch work, and you're doing this program on top of it, which is a pretty intensive all in business building kind of program.
yes.
So you had a lot on your plate. Let's just acknowledge that for a moment. But you also did make incredible progress with the program, which was so exciting to see. And I just, yeah, absolute honor for me to be
Well,
part of that experience with you.
thank you. Yeah. So now I'm at a good spot, our kid, he is a year old now, like I said. He kind of has more independence. Like, I am not the main food source anymore. And so I'm like, hello, life. I am ready. And so you had put out your no matter what challenge this
Mm.
summer. You said that you did that again. And then I saw other women showing up for the no matter what challenge. And they were really what inspired me. Actually, I was like, you know what? They're out here being so raw, being so, so vulnerable with everything that they're going through, not sugarcoating it. And I can do that. I can do the same exact thing. Like, what I have to say matters. And I had actually taken a chance on myself a week prior. There's this coffee shop here in town and they had posted on Facebook that they're like, we no longer have this lady making bagels for us. And I was like, huh, wonder if they're looking for somebody to make them bagels. And so I shot the owner a message and he was like, oh, yes, we're looking, we'd love to have somebody. I had made bagels one time before, one time. Like, was I ready to make bagels? Absolutely not. Not at all. But I knew it was something that I could learn how to do. like baking and cooking, that's in my wheelhouse. That is a skill that I possess, which I've learned now that not everybody possesses that skill. So don't sell yourself short. And here I am now making like 100 bagels a week. So it's amazing.
That is so
And
cool.
it's just so reaffirming, I guess, to see what happens when you say yes to yourself.
Mm,
And that's what the bagel experience and the no matter what challenge have really helped me with. So I would like to continue that progress. And once the no matter what challenge is over, I already have some things that I am planning, like for my Instagram to kind of share my story and get that out there. And then, like I said, eventually I would like to write a book. I really would. It's always been a goal of mine. For so long, I was like, yeah, I enjoy writing, but it wasn't until I was in college and was taking an English class that, and it was the end of the semester, I had a conference with my professor, and her parting words were, keep writing, the world needs a voice like yours. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. Like, if this lady thinks that my story is worth hearing, I bet there's a lot of other people that think the same thing. And so that's where that kind of happened.
mm, goosebumps. It's so powerful to have somebody reflect your own power back at you because like you said, a lot of times we do sell ourselves short, and maybe the things that come more easily to us, we don't see the value in them because it's not as much of a struggle to write or to bake, but then
Right.
somebody else experiences it and it's like, you have a gift,
Yeah.
please do something with this, and it kind of just triggers something in your brain that's like, oh, okay, holy cow, I didn't quite realize what I had to offer, but this is so affirming and inspiring. And I love what your reflection with seeing the other women in the no matter what challenge, because yeah, to see other people putting themselves out there and
Yeah.
do the same kind of thing that you know you aspire to, but maybe you haven't given yourself that permission to do it yet.
Right.
And then you see somebody else giving themselves permission and it's like, well, hang on, why can't I
Hmm.
do the same thing for myself? Which is why I tell everyone who's in the challenge, like, keep tagging me in your stories because I want to share and I want to get that out there because I know in my experience how powerful it's been to watch other people doing things and then hang on, okay, if they're doing it and they're a human and they can figure out how to do it,
Right.
I'm a human. I could probably figure it out too.
Yeah.
Wow. It's just
Yes.
so powerful to have that inspiration. And oh my God, I get so excited hearing you say that you want to write a book because that is something that I've always felt calling at my heart too. I put out a little ebook in 2022 and that was really like the jumping off point for me to even get into coaching and get into working with other women was like seeing their messages and like the way that my stories and my guidebook and my teachings were landing with them was like, yeah, that was the impetus for me to be like, oh my God, I could make an impact. And it's so amazing to have that experience of helping other people in their journey.
Right.
It's the most beautiful thing ever. So tell me about your book. Do you have any spoilers for us? Do you have an idea of what it might be about?
So I've kind of always felt this calling to not necessarily like a true autobiography, um, but something kind of along the lines of that. Like, my story growing up was was a mess, I come from a split home, so that was a challenge in and of itself. For me personally, there were so many things that I just believed because I was told,
Mm,
this is how it is, this is what we do type thing. It wasn't until I was older that I was like, hang on, let's examine this, let's question some things here, figure it out. And as I've went through my life, I've connected with men and women both that are like, yeah, I kind of have a similar story or a similar upbringing, things like that. And so I just want to put that out there to let people know that they're not alone. I know so many times in this world it can feel like we're alone or like we're the only one going through that. But I promise you, you're not. There is somebody else that has gone through something similar or that exact same thing. And so just to kind of have that community and to let people know like there there is hope, I guess, and like there's a light, and what you came from is not who you have to be.
Mm,
You can create your own story. You can either use the cards that you've been dealt as a crutch, or you can use them as the thing that propels you forward to the life that you want for yourself. And that's what I've done, and that's what I want to encourage other people to do.
that is freaking amazing. And what I hear you saying in that, which is so powerful and something that I'd really love to highlight for the listeners, is examine your beliefs.
Mhm.
And if they're not serving you, if they're not contributing to the experiences that you want to have, the life that you want to live, you get to reframe those beliefs. You get to choose different beliefs.
Yep.
And I think that's something that is starting to become more talked about and more understood. But I think for many of us, I know you and I growing up, it just like the world is kind of framed for you and you think that this is how it is, but it doesn't have to be that way. And you don't have to be even who you're told that you are growing up.
Right.
Like your personality, your characteristics, everything is malleable and you can be whatever kind of character that you want to be. And that's what I would just love to invite our listeners into is looking at those beliefs for
Yep.
yourself.
One of my favorite quotes is, "It's your own story. Hit them with a plot twist whenever you feel like." Because that's just what I've been doing, I jokingly tell my husband all the time, like when I make something new, when I make a new food dish or something like that, I'm like, "Yep, made with a little bit of spite and a whole lot of love." Like it's kind of how I thrive sometimes. It's like, you know what? Like I am going to be a little spiteful, not for bad, but just to spice things up a little bit,
Mm,
like, and for so long I believed that who I was the person that other people told me I was, right? I didn't get to decide who I was, I guess, in a way. And it wasn't until I was in college and kind of went through everything that I went through that I was like, you know what? You don't have to be a perfectionist all the time about every little thing. Um, you're allowed to say no. You're allowed to say yes.
mm,
You are allowed to create whatever you want for yourself as long as you are willing to chase after it. And I think that's been a big thing for me, especially here recently. I've kind of thought, like, does this serve me in the way that I want it to serve me? Nope. All right, then it's gone, and I'm not going to apologize for it. That's the big thing. Make a decision, but don't apologize for it.
mm. Yeah, own it. That self reflection is so key to be like, how is this actually sitting? Am I
Mhm.
saying yes because I want to, or am I saying yes because I feel like I need to, and this is who I
Right.
need to be in this situation? And like a lot of those defense mechanisms come from just seeking safety. And we're
Mhm.
not wrong to seek safety for ourselves. It's just a problem when that starts to get in the way of what we actually want to experience. Because what we
Yeah.
actually want to experience isn't that feeling of safety or that feeling of comfort. Because that perceived safety might not actually be a good situation.
Right.
And it's certainly not like the highest kind of expression that you could be stepping into.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that you really highlighted in your course was the first time that you do something, it's going to be crappy, right? Like you're going to make crappy art or crappy music or crappy writing, but that's okay because if you keep doing it, eventually it won't be crappy. You have refined it, you've worked on it. And that's kind of what I think about like with this bagel situation, right? Like the first time I made bagels, I was like, this ain't it. This ain't it. And now I'm like, oh man, look at me. Like these are good. I'm figuring it out type deal. And so just having the courage to take that first step is so big.
Yeah. And allowing yourself to be messy
Mhm.
and mess it up. Yeah.
Yes.
To wrap this up, we're kind of, I think, touching on this from all angles, but what would be your number one piece of advice or something that you would want to share with your past self, knowing that there are probably quite a few people listening who would fall into that archetype of your past self, and it might be something that they would really need to hear as well?
I would say just start. Just show up as your true self. Don't try to mask the ugly parts of you. Don't try to change yourself to fit in. The world needs who you are. We were created as individuals for a reason. If we were all the same, it would be so incredibly boring. And
Mm,
so that's what I would tell her. Just start. You're going to be afraid. You're going to make mistakes, but you're also going to learn. I mean, that's what I've already seen in the no matter what challenge. My first day, it took me like a half an hour to record a quick little snippet to just put up on my story. I was terrified. I was like, what do I even have to say, you know? And now first time I record it, done. Boom. Put it on the story. It's good to go. And this will be day 9. So just start.
that's amazing, like the kind of progress that you've made and just allowing yourself to show up in such a short period of time. But what would you say to the people who are held back by fear? How do you access that courage to start?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say look at where you are right now in this moment and look at where you want to be. And if the person standing in the way of those two versions of yourself is your own self, then step aside and just go.
Mm.
Just chase after what you want because I promise you, taking that first step is so worth it.
And would you say that your fear has diminished, or is it that your courage has grown in the
Oh,
process?
I would definitely say my courage has grown. There, there's always going to be a little bit of fear, right? But I think that's okay. I think it's okay to have a healthy amount of fear as long as you don't let it hold you back. Because if something doesn't scare you a little bit, then does it really excite you? You know?
Yeah.
That's my thoughts with it.
If it was easy, everyone would be doing it and it would be much less meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Alli, for all of your words of wisdom, for sharing your story with us today, and for being on the podcast. It's been an amazing conversation, and I'm so grateful that you've shown up today and you've put this out there for me to share with my audience and share with the world. And I'm so excited to see everything that you are working on and what you plan to work on in the future. And where can people go to keep up with you, to get connected to your story, to see you participating in the No Matter What challenge? Where can they get involved?
Right now, I'm just on Instagram at authentically Al. So that is where you can find me. That's my little corner of the internet for now.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And do you think as you're writing your book, are you going to be sharing some stories on Instagram as you go as well to kind of get the excitement going? Share those sneak peeks with us? I'm hoping.
Yes, I would love to, just to kind of build that audience, build that trust, and put it out there.
Amazing. I can't wait. Thanks again, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Creative Freedom Plan podcast. And if you loved it so much you'd like to shout from the rooftops and share it on social media, be sure to screenshot, tag me at Michael Emily Schuster, and share it to your story so I can stalk your profile and we can connect over there. Much love to you, and I will see you in the next episode.